Right now, we run about a total of 3 employees, and we run a 7-figure operation. It's not stressful. It's actually fun. We do between 2 and 5 deals a month. Like, I don't need to do 15, 20 deals. So when people tell me, oh, I do 15, 20 deals a month, that means nothing to me. If you do one deal and make 100 grand, what's the difference between the guy who does 15 deals and makes, 3 grand a piece? So I've learned how to do quality over quantity. I'll still take quantity, but I've learned a $5,000 deal is the same amount of work as doing a deal for 100,000.
G'day, guys, and welcome to the Thunder from Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Graham Solomon. Now, our guest today is a seasoned investor, a seasoned wholesaler. I think got something like 939 videos, and I think they've got about 40,000 members now in Wholesaling Houses for Real. He talks himself down as the junior partner to the superstar that we know as Zach Ginn, and he is none other than his father, Rick Ginn. Rick, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out to come onto the podcast.
Thanks, Graham. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Great to meet you finally. As you probably know, I've been harassing Zach for a long time since he started the group. He's, I think he calls me his dodgy Australian step uncle who just keeps jumping in and harassing him. So we have a bit of fun, and that's all good. And Zach's, given us the opportunity to interview him, and it was a great interview. And I threatened him. I jumped in there. I hijacked his live probably about a week ago and said, look, we've got the big one coming up with Rick. I said, Rick and I are very similar age, and there could be a really bad dad joke. So I thought I better deliver a dad joke before we get into it. And Rick, what do you call a hippie's wife?
I have no idea.
Mrs. Hippie. So there, it had a US slant. It had a US slant as well. So we'll park that there. That's probably I probably should have had some fake laughs there, but that was, I heard a few crickets there.
I've been banned from doing jokes on my show from my son. So.
Yeah, no, that's the only dad joke I'll ever do. I just thought that was appropriate, just to embarrass Zach. So, I mean, also you guys, I just wanted to, before I started, I just wanted to also do a shout out that I haven't got it on the screen, but you guys have got a free wholesaling course, which obviously people that know your channel have probably got it, and people like myself, Zach's given us the permission to put it out in our groups. So that's an amazing resource. So I asked everyone to go and check that out. And also, you've got a free direct mail one, haven't you? You've done a direct mail course as well.
Mailingmastery.com. And I take 20 years of everything I've learned in direct mail, and I just sum it up all nice. And you can do it from a beginner to an extremely advanced investor. So I started out with direct mail because that's calling it all we knew back in 2003. And I've never stopped doing it. So I have a good track record with it. I enjoy it. I don't really recommend people starting out with it, but once you can get a few deals on your belt, it's extremely reliable. Like, it's people like, why do you do it? I go, because I know exactly what I make on it. So I did start out cold calling and a lot of the traditional stuff. I did door knocking, and I wound up doing direct mail. And a big portion of our marketing is direct mail, just because it's extremely scalable, and I know exactly almost to the penny what I will earn on what I invest on my direct mail. So that's 20 years though.
With that, I'll just do a little teaser to get people. I know personally that one of your mail pieces is an absolute gem, and that's worked really good for you. I mean, anyone that watches you guys on your channel know what I'm talking about. I want to ask you, I know, and a lot of the viewers probably don't, but I'll let them know that you've been 20 years in the industry. That means you would have seen a lot of stuff come and go. I mean, 20 years, you would have seen a lot of cycles. You would have seen a lot of stuff. Tell me how you got into it, how you first come across this wholesaling thing, and what made you get into it, and sort of like.
It's I grew up in Florida here in the States, and divorced parents, and I was told by my parents to go to college, get a good job, and just fit in, and that's all I knew. But as I went through school, I don't know how to put this, Graham. I wasn't the best student in the world. I had a lot of issues. So my parents split up. My dad kind of took off, and I was a teenager, and I didn't understand why we had to sit in a chair in school. So, long story short, I probably had what they refer today as ADHD. I was just very hyper. I questioned everything they taught me, and I spent a lot of time in the principal's office. So when it came time to get serious for college, I had okay grades. They weren't great. So I wound up going to whatever college would take me, and I decided to get a finance degree because I go, well, you need to know about money. So 6 years later, it took me 6 years to get through college. Um, I got that, and I went into the work field, and I worked for several corporations, and I found a home at a corporation. Basically, for the next 11 years, I worked 10 to 12 hours a day. They moved me all over the states. And once I started having kids and I got married, I said, I don't want to go all over the world. Like, not all over the world, all over the United States. And I watched my bosses get fired. I was making less money with more responsibility. And I was 33 at the time. And I just said, there's got to be a better way. And so I came across, I believe, a radio ad talking about real estate investing. Long story short, I went to a bunch of seminars. I paid a bunch of people money, and then I started investing in real estate. Now, I didn't start with wholesaling. I learned how to buy stuff off of the market with a realtor, and then the plan was to buy and hold it, pay it off in 10 years, and then that would retire me. Well, I got hit with 4 hurricanes. The most violent market shakeup. So in the States here, from '07 to 2010, it was really hard. And so I had to reinvent myself. I said, that wasn't working. I had to get rid of a lot of my properties. The rents tumbled. And I started figuring out this thing, wholesaling. I found it by accident. So I went to a local RIA group, and they told me about this thing, wholesaling. I took a couple courses, and I kind of figured. So I started out just doing real estate investing, and the plan was to buy 10 houses, pay them off, and then that would supplement my income to retire. Well, it didn't work out that well. There was a lot of changes in it. And so I started taking some courses on wholesaling, although it was very rudimentary back then. It was like, hey, get the house under contract, just sell it. We didn't have nearly as many rules as we have now, as you know. And I just got really good at it. But what I did is Zach at the time was, how old was he? He was like 3 or 4 years old. And then I had a young daughter. I had a mortgage. I'm sure you can feel me here, Graham. I had a lot of pressure to pay the bills. And yeah, so I said, I'm not going to leave the job. So I would work on wholesaling 3 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then I did my regular corporate job. And it took me about 5 or 6 months. And I made, I put aside 1 year's salary. And then I finally left my job. And that was 20 years ago. And my biggest fear, Graham, was always like running out of deals. And I'm into them up to my neck right now. So fast forward to today right now, my son, he's now 22. He started in the business at 16. I taught him how to make $100,000 in 90 days with no experience. And from that, we decided to say, hey, let's bring our story to the world and kind of show people what we do. So me and Zach actively run a wholesaling business. We're a small company, but we're extremely highly profitable because I know how to do this. And our average margin in the United States here is $36,000 a deal, and we do a lot of them. And so what we did is we got tired of the way this industry's been going, because the way I was taught 20 years ago was it was a lot of pain the first 10 years. So I said, let's fast forward. Let's do something nobody else does. Let's just give it away. Let's show them exactly what we do. Let's get them a basic skill to get them in the top 10% of income earners in their bracket. And that's where wholesaling came in. And from wholesaling, it's changed my life drastically. So I have all the time I want. And the main reason I got in the wholesaling, Graham, was to free up my time so I could spend time. So as my kids were raised, I went to all their sporting events. I went to all their recitals. I was the opposite of what my dad was. I buried him with it. And wholesaling's like, the money's really nice. And I was hoping I'd make a lot of money. But honestly, if I got my freedom of time and I made the same amount of money as I did before, I would have been okay with it. And I set my expectation. And whenever things get out of whack, I'm like, okay, do you have freedom? So If you have to set an alarm clock or you have to go to work and work on someone else's dream, you truly don't have freedom. You're going to be stuck. So here's the good news is um, in 6 months, I figured out how to get out of that hole I was in. And I owed a lot of money, and I haven't looked back since then. So now, right now, I'm 52. My son's 22. Um, we're partnered up on several businesses, even outside of real estate. And we do this channel together. We have a lot of fun. He's the techno wizard. I have no idea even how this camera even popped up here. So if you guys have kids, you can appreciate like some of their technology with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, all that stuff. And I'm just trying to enjoy every minute of my life because I, we don't know how long we're going to be here. So I love wholesaling because it gives me freedom, and honestly, you got to have fun while you're doing it. And it's kind of funny because you kind of see our like wholesaling, our video and stuff like that. Is just that's a lot of me because I'm a little bit out there, dude. I like to have fun, and like so whenever I'm learning real estate or I go to an event, I'm like, guys, let's have fun. Like this is, you guys are like, you got to be fun. So this is how I connect with people, with sellers and stuff. I'm just like, hey, what's the least amount you take? And we get to know people, and we get to know them really well. And me and you spent some time even before we did this interview. It's just how I operate. So it's like, if I wouldn't have you over for dinner to spend time with me, like I don't want to invest time with you. There's a million people on this earth. So I want to connect with people that are like-minded and have fun. And if you got anybody who's even exploring and thinking about wholesaling, it literally saved my life. It's made a tremendous difference in my son's life. And then, my wife, I've been married 25 years, and she's like, I've never seen anything like what you did. And her parents thought I was crazy. Can you relate, Graham? They literally thought I was crazy. And now I look back, I'm like, am I crazy now? Because I take care of your daughter better than any man could. I take care of you guys. I take care of everybody. I had a plan and a vision. It seemed a little risky at the time, but that's it. That's my story. So I'm still actively wholesaling.
I just I got rid of the Thunder thing on my TV screen and put the flag up because that is Zach and I. That was our thing. I saw you had the American flag back up, and so I put the American flag back up because I used to hang one at the other place I was at when I first started with Zach in the background because I love that about you guys having your flag up. So that's pretty cool. 6 months. That's pretty good to put that money aside and be able to leave your job in 6 months. I mean, I think anyone, and that's 20 years ago. So I think anyone this day and age, if you said 6 months and you leave your job and have that much money in the bank, would take it in this day and age. But 20 years ago, the risk that you took 20 years ago is amazing because people wouldn't have, a lot of people don't really know what it is now, wholesaling sort of out in the bigger market, do they? So imagine, it must have been pretty scary 20 years ago saying, I'm quitting my job, I'm going to do this. And like you said, the mother and father-in-law would have had the stiff eyebrow looking at you saying, what's going on here? So,
Yeah.
Kudos to you for taking the risk and doing that. But once again, you took a calculated risk because you kept your job and you said, right, until I get to there. Some people have burned the boats and that works for them, but that's actually a very sort of sensible thing to do is to say, all right, when I get to that amount, then I'll go full time. So that's awesome. Now, along the way, 20 years, Rick, I know you said you run a pretty sort of mean, lean operation now. Have you scaled and been up and down in size? Have you had big crews? Have you had?
Yeah. So at the peak in 2000, really 15, 16, I had 15 people working for me. I had a large office, and we did a lot of deals. I own an agency on top of this too, but I don't run it. I just own it. So my wife's in that thing. And so we had the agency, we had the wholesaling, we had some property management, but I'd have to go into work at like 7:30. And then by the time we were done training and stuff, I was leaving at 7. And I quickly figured out, like, dang, I'm working again. And after you make a certain amount of money, it's not about how much money you make. And I quickly realized, like, I got into a pattern, as you said, like, how much is enough? And you're doing payroll, you have a lot of stress, and honestly, you don't even, like, when you get that big of an operator, you don't even know what you're making because money's coming in and out so fast. And it just became like, you're talking about general sales managers, transaction coordinators. It just, I looked at my wife and go, I don't want to do this anymore. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And some people would write that off as a failure. I didn't. I said, like, I just don't enjoy what I'm doing anymore. And so we kind of wound it back. And that's really when I deep dive and I started teaching Zach the business as I was unwinding that. And I said, don't ever do it like this. And I'm here to tell you, because we would have three or $400,000 come in the account, but like 200 or 300 would race out. I'm like, and I have to sit with my accountant. He's like, you didn't make any more money than you would have the way you were doing it before. I'm just like, all this stress for that. And so I find like the shell game. So fast forward to where we are now. We unwound all that. I took care of everybody. A lot of the people still work with me, the best employees. And we do everything virtually because if anything, the last 2 years have taught us, like you want to stress test your business. The last 2 years is probably the best test you could do. And once we committed virtually, we did very well during this time. And so now I can, like, Graham, if you wanted to work with me, I could easily, like, it doesn't matter where you are. We're in a global economy. And the fact that we're even having this conversation. So right now we run about a total of 3 employees and we run a 7-figure operation, and it's not stressful. It's actually fun. So we've figured out how to do it. So I have 20 years under my belt. I got to tell you in the beginning, I took what I could. But now we know exactly how much the money to get from every deal, just because I know what I'm doing. And then everybody works under me, understands it. So the really bad stuff, we just assign instantly. And then the stuff that's really good that we know is going to have a lot of demand, we have a small crew that'll go on and fix it. So most of our repairs, just so you know, are 2 weeks and 10 grand or less. We don't do bigger jobs than that because so in the States, it's gotten so expensive to repair a house. It's so hard to do now. It's not even cost effective anymore. So all these flip shows, as you know how it works. So, and that's it. And we work on, we do between 2 and 5 deals a month. Like I don't need to do 15, 20 deals. So when people tell me, oh, I do 15, 20 deals a month, that means nothing to me. If you do one deal, make 100 grand, what's the difference between the guy who does 15 deals and makes, $3 grand a piece? It's like, to me. So I've learned how to do quality over quantity. I'll still take quantity, but I'm like, I've learned a $5,000 deal is the same amount of work as doing a deal for 100,000. So I'm really good at pointing in the right direction for the right lists. And so my highest calling is marketing and connecting with people. And then my most frustrating skill set is teaching people sometimes what I do. And I've learned you don't have to be Rick. You don't have to be Zach. You just have to be you, and you have to have a consistent program to go through it. And that's it, man. We have a lot of fun with what we do. And it's if I want to take like a day off, so I spend a lot of time fishing. So I get up early. I get all my emails set. I get on the boat, and everybody kind of makes fun of me because I got a headgear on while I'm fishing. It's just so if like somebody needs me, they can call me, but they know what to do. And then I get back in the afternoon, clean up, and just we update all the files, and we have a lot of fun. And then usually one day a week, I hop in the car and we go work on deals. So my favorite thing is me and Zach to get in a car to see who can close somebody. And he thinks he's a better closer than me. And to be honest, he probably is now because I'm rusty.
Bit of healthy competition there. So
yeah, we do that.
You've been through 20 years of market cycles. You've seen sort of all those. So you've been able to, like you said, do deals through all market cycles. You've been bigger, and you went, nah, I'm going back smaller. Then you've been able to do a business with your son, which I think is most dads' dreams, to be able to get along and do that and be good at it. So you're in a happy place, and on top of that, you get to do YouTube videos and all this sort of stuff, which is a bit of fun as well. So I totally agree with you, Rick. Like I was taught from a very young age in the trade business, you spend a lot of time on the job, so you got to enjoy it. You got to have fun. So I was just lucky enough to work with a guy that drummed that into us, an old Scottish guy when I was a kid, and I've always run by that no matter what I'm doing. So that's a thunderbolt there. We call them thunderbolts on the show, Rick, where not gold nuggets. And
I like that.
We just dropped a thunderbolt. So that's you've got to enjoy yourself. And another thing you said too, which just hit me right in the ears, was you also said that you've got to be yourself. You've got to be yourself. There's no, and that also goes, I guess, and you can elaborate on this a bit more. If you've got certain skill sets, stop trying to be good at something you're really bad at and really focus and be really good at what you're good at. So, and what I mean by that is, like, if you're really good at acquisitions, just spend more time on the phone and become a master of that, because although you have to work on other areas, if you're yourself and you actually, use your strengths, you're a bit more of a powerful unit. And I mean, you've been doing it for 20 years, so you could elaborate on that, couldn't you?
Yeah. So it's, I always tell people whenever you start wholesaling, I just believe there's wholesaling. Before you read any materials or do anything, just take a sheet of paper and write down why you're doing it. And if you don't have a clear conviction, you're most likely going to fail. This goes for almost anything you do, by the way. This is general life. This is like dad philosophy. So you got to write down why, because I had a good, safe job. I did everything. I did exactly what my parents taught me to do. I just wasn't happy. It was miserable. And I looked around and everybody was miserable. And I saw a study that came out yesterday. They said 70% of the American population, and this probably goes probably a lot in your country too, is they're miserable in what they're doing. They just go through the mechanics of it. So 70% of the people around you are miserable in their job, but nobody wants to do anything about it. You got like, what the heck's going on? Everyone's scared. They don't like to get uncomfortable. So I made that leap. I knew my why was just to spend more time with my family. It was like really simple, one word sentence, expanded. And what I did, a little hint, is I took my bathroom mirror. So I assume you got a bathroom mirror, right, Graham?
Yeah.
Take an erasable dry marker, not a permanent one, and write your why on there. And you got to look at it every day. So you can't avoid it. It gets really annoying, and you figure it out. So I looked at it for a week before I actually took any action on wholesaling, and I did it. And then I found out, what am I really good at? And it's so funny because people you ask yourself, what am I really good at? Like, a lot of people don't know what they're good at, even though you've been on this earth so long. So here's a little skill set. Just ask your family member, your kids mostly. Kids are brutally honest, and tell me, what's the one thing you really like about dad, other than just me being your dad? And they'll just tell you point blank, you're funny, man. Like, you spend a lot of time with us. You get to know us. And so if you want to know what your superpower is, because God made us all extremely different, and he did it for a reason. Okay. Ask your family members what your superpower is and just shut up. Let them tell you. You don't say it, and they will tell you. And it's true. You want someone to acknowledge it. So once you know what your superpower is, mine's always been the ability to connect with people and just being authentic. And that's all I try to drive on my YouTube channel, everything I do with people. Like, this is what I do. When you meet me off camera, this is who I am. There's not like this wardrobe doesn't come off. So I think we have a problem in society where everyone's trying to literally duplicate everybody, especially in the wholesaling industry. Like, I wore a jacket and a suit for 11 years. I hated every day of it. The only way you're getting me in a jacket and suit, someone's got to get married or someone's got to die. And even then I protest it. So when people go on stage with their jackets and all this, I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, what makes you so, I don't know, man. I just think people stop taking humble pie. They believe themselves too much. And I think if we're all unique and we be who we're supposed to be, God will put you in the place to make you thrive. And this isn't a religious statement. It's just true. Like, we're all different. You and me are very different. We're on the opposite sides of the world. And here we are connecting with a common theme of wholesaling. Like, how can that be? And I try to tell people, like, stop trying to you don't need to be Rick. You don't need to be Zach. Just go out and be you, because the world needs you. And I get people like, oh, Rick, I don't know how to sell. I go, wholesaling has nothing to do with selling. I'm here to tell you it's only about helping people out and solving problems. So many people in this business, Graham, think we need to be these slick salesmen. I hate that stuff, man. Like, just be yourself, be authentic, find out what your superpower is, and bring it forthright. And here's the biggest hint I can give you right now. In wholesaling specifically, lose your ego. If you lose your ego, you can do amazing things in this business. Your ego is the part of your brain that always wants to tell you you're right, no matter, even when you know you're wrong. And the minute you can lose your ego, amazing things will happen to you. Most of the problem in our wholesaling business is people's egos are just so big. They're like, oh, look how big I am. Look how many followers I have. I never ever start a show and tell you how many followers I have. I don't like, honestly, why would you, that's just a stat. It's like a KPI, right? Like if I want to connect with you, I'll listen to someone 5-10 minutes and like, I know right away. I'm like, okay, this Graham guy's for real, or like they're just putting on a show. They're trying to accomplish something. They're going to try to sell me. By the way, I have nothing to sell anybody on this show. I love wholesaling. I've been doing this 20 years. I'm telling you guys, find out what your superpower is and let go of your ego. And once again, this will work in any part of your life, the relationship with your spouse, with your kids. Let's face it, Graham, us older guys, we get big egos. And you kind of wonder, like I've looked into my ego really deep in the last 5 years, and it's, I guess it's a big part that kind of humbles me and it keeps me simple. So I wake up every day like I'm broke. And I tend to hide money out of accounts. And I'm like, let's go to work. And, I know, Grant Cardone taught me that a long time ago. And like, I'm not the biggest Grant Cardone fan, but I like what he does. He says, I wake up broke every day. I got to go find the money. Like he doesn't care how many millions of dollars he set aside. Let's go to work. How are we going to feed the family this month? And like, so celebrate your wins and have fun with it. And,
mate, you've just hit us with about 10 thunderbolts there. So that was unbelievable. I'm sure the listeners would have taken all that in. And I mean, like you said, like if you're a tech person and you hate talking to people, be the tech person. Knock yourself out. I mean, if you really geek out at stuff, knock yourself out. If you're the person, like myself, that can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, get on the phone and talk to people. I mean, I always joke, the fact I'm illiterate, I never do type stuff on the phone. I just get on voice messages and that because it's easier. So that's, and that's exactly what you're saying. And, like you said, you like solving problems and helping people with problems. So that probably gives you a buzz when you go and do that, when you get a tricky situation and you can actually solve someone's problem and help them out. Even though it's your business and you're making money, you're actually helping them. And that gives you that internal buzz. So you talk a little bit, I mean, it's a wholesaling, the Facebook group is a wholesaling group predominantly, but you have done a fair bit of creative finance stuff and you have done video, in Flip with Rick, you've got sub twos and lease options. And I think you I'm not sure if you learnt off Wendy Patton once upon a time or you sort of worked with her. So you've pretty much done everything. Is that more of a personal thing that you do outside in your own investing? You don't, would you say you do a fair bit of that, or that's just for your own portfolio?
You talking about the different types of deals I do or the different types of investing?
Yeah, like the sub twos and the lease options and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's, I was fortunate enough to go through a time in this business. A lot of people, like you were probably raised without cell phones, right? It was like, we just, yeah. But I wouldn't change it because it kind of made me who I am. And like, I had to really learn how to connect with people. Like that's just, so everything we did when we grew up was like belly to belly. So when I went out to learn wholesaling, I had to like get in a car, get in a plane and go like sit through an 8-hour thing, which was very painful for me to do. And that's how I would find like the Wendy Pattons and stuff like that. But I liked it. They were small, intimate crowds. People actually knew what they were doing. And it's like a dead art now. Now everybody on the internet who kind of does it. So, but once I learned wholesaling, which is nothing more than the fundamentals of buying deeply discounted properties, the other side of that equation is like, what are you going to do with it? Now, if you got to pay your rent, you got to generate cash for the family, got to get out of debt, you need to just keep churning them over, creating the cash and getting out of the hole you're in. But once you're out of that hole, then you make a decision what you want to do it. And I learned how to do creative financing pretty quickly, especially around 2008 and 9, when nothing could sell traditionally with banks. They wouldn't finance anything. And I saw a tremendous opportunity, so I studied everything I possibly humanly could, and I just started taking over properties subject to. Full disclosure, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew like I'd get waterfront houses. So I once bought a house. It was in a short sale situation, so I figured out how to flip short sales when nobody else was doing it. And I bought it for $300,000. I had a $3 million mortgage on it. And they go, we'll give it to you for 300,000. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, so we figured out how to like get our way through it. And then I had to go get the money to do it. And I put it up, and I sold it and I made a lot of money. But like, I looked back a year ago, it sold for $7 million. And all I had to wait was 5 years. So it kind of opened my eyes up. So I'm more of a long-term player now. We cherry pick stuff for a portfolio. Me and Zach partner up on a lot of it because I love creative financing. I'm a big advocate of learning wholesaling first because that's where all the deals come from, and then you can decide what to do. So I love probates. Probate's one of my favorite things in the world. And if you guys are ever looking for good creative financing deals, probate's the best place to find them because a deceased person who has a mortgage note in the United States, it's so easy to take over that mortgage. And what's the family going to say? There's no risk to them. They don't care. And you don't have to go out and get a lot of money. And I took over a ton of them doing it that way. So I'm open to doing anything. It's like you constantly learn in this business. So always start out wholesaling and understand the fundamentals of how to market and find really good deals. And then the backside is you can figure, like, do you want to hold some for cash flow? Yeah. Well, I had almost 40 properties at once, about lost my mind and sold them all. I hate the management part of real estate. I really do. It's like, so even like subject to, you have a certain responsibility and obligation and you have to follow through in it. And so I've learned to hire people to help me out with it because not only we have to manage the tenants, we have to manage the payments. We have to stay in full compliance. It's a lot of work. So I'll take a property down any way I can. It's just sometimes I'm a student learning like everybody else. Like I don't know it all. Like I have 20 years. Like I'm like, I didn't know you could do that. You could do this. You can do that. But when the markets change and stuff, creative financing is really, really attractive. Creative financing has become really popular in the last few years, but I'm old school when it comes to creative financing. I believe you should cash flow from day one when you take over a property. And I see a lot of people taking unnecessary risks right now. And it concerns me in the market. But so I do teach it at freewholesaling.com, but we find all our deals in wholesaling, and then you decide how you want to take it down. And if I can use somebody else's money on a mortgage and leave a small payment up front and get more and give it to a new renter or a new buyer, then I'm all for it. And it's, lease options, subject twos. I've got a little bit of everything. So I like apartments the best because a lot of times the management's built in, it's fun, but apartments have got challenging here in the United States. So we predominantly do single family residential, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I was going to say it. You mentioned before, you got this and that. People think it's passive incomes means passive. You don't have to do anything. It's you've still got to do stuff. You've still got to organise people. And that's where I guess, like you said, wholesaling is less moving parts in it. To get from start to finish, there's less moving parts than if you've got something stretched out over a period of time. So
once you master wholesaling, like you can add to it. So a lot of people, a lot of the courses and stuff are sold as like, we'll teach it like do wholesaling. Wholesaling, in reality, it's a fundamental skill, and it's very direct and focused. And if you spend your time just doing that and master it, then you can just keep adding it like just chapter. You can do subject to, you can do lease options, you can figure out how to do short sales. You can do fix and flips, you can do whatever. But a lot of people try to sell like the sexy part of the business. Learn wholesaling first. I'm a huge fan of it because I see a lot of people that they'll learn creative financing and the pitch is, well, wholesaling's so hard, just come over to creative financing. We just give people what they want. That sounds like a disaster to me, doesn't it? It's like, I never want to be the guy who pays the most for a property. And I've done creative financing deals where I had to give the property back because it didn't make sense anymore. So I've watched the pain. And there's a lot of laws and regulations when you take over someone's mortgage. It's not as easy as everybody makes it sound out to be. So I'd rather you be responsible and understand the basics of the business, and then you add, and then if you want to pay someone to help you scale it and kind of do it. But wholesaling is always where it starts. Now, I'm like a highly function all over, like I have ADHD, And my son goes, man, you got so much information up there. Let me help you organize it. And we can use some of the technologies today to deliver it. So I love the way I'm doing it. If I tried to do this on my own, it would have been a disaster, Graham. And so I'm thankful that my son was at that point in my life. It just worked out really well. Otherwise, you and me wouldn't be talking right now.
Yeah,
So
great
which is
combination. All that experience, 20 years of knowledge, experience, and like you said, a bit of ADHD rolled in there as well. And then Zach, I mean, Zach's energy, but also his tech skills and that youthful tech skills and that drive. It just, I mean, that's obviously why you've pumped out so much content and on such a wide variety of topics too. It's not just, I mean, you've covered just about everything. I don't know if there's any more. You might have to double up and go back again with the content because you've just done so much. And like you said right at the start, it's been fun. You've been able to work with your son. You're enjoying it. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Like I said, we probably spent more time before we jumped on talking dad stuff, but I'm sure that if people go back and watch and listen really carefully to Rick, he hits all the key points that you need to focus on. Plus, you can go in to the Flip with Rick YouTube channel. It's all there. Wholesaling houses for real. It's all there. And Zach and Rick together, they do free coaching. I mean, this is insane. You can actually go in. Is it the Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon? It's Thursday afternoon, isn't it?
we do it Thursday for 2 hours. So
Two
as
hours.
long
You
as
can go in there,
yeah,
jump in live, and get coached for free. I mean, it's just amazing. I can't
yeah,
believe that there's not more people there. I mean, you get a fair few people there, but it's just insane. So I quite often watch it and go, why aren't people, it's just bizarre. So Thursday, 2 hours, jump in there. And I mean, any question, there's no question too silly. The only
yeah.
silly question is the one you don't ask. And the guys just go through, if you haven't already been in there, you've got to do yourself a favor and jump in there. And, same with the free course. Go and check it out. It's there. Um, what more can I say? Do yourself a favor. So, anyway, Rick, I'll let you go. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been great talking to you, and I appreciate Zach for setting it up for us. Zach's a great kid, and I really appreciate him doing that for us, and just sharing that 20 years worth of knowledge with us. Because one thing that I've been told by a few people is go and find someone that's further ahead than you and asking a lot of questions and stick to them like glue. So Thursday, everyone can jump in and do that. And Zach's probably got the pace he works at. He's probably got 10 years worth of experience already, and he's short. He works around the clock. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing all your knowledge with us. And what I'll do is we'll sign out now, Rick, because I know you got to go. I just want to because you dropped so many thunderbolts. I just want to finish off here with the outro. And thanks to Rick Ginn, you have been thunderstruck. All right, guys. See you later.
I appreciate it.